Good evening. Welcome to tonight's Amherst Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Today's date is April 16th, 2024. We'll start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Will everyone please rise? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. In the event of a fire or other emergency, please follow the exit signs that are provided in this room and throughout Town Hall. Upon exiting this room, the main exits are located in the front and the rear of the building. Do not use the elevators during an emergency event. This meeting is being recorded and streamed online. If you do not want to wait to hear the outcome of any given petition, you can call the town clerk's office tomorrow morning after 9 a.m. to learn the outcome of any item if you choose to leave. Will the deputy clerk please call the roll?
Chairman Bray?
Present.
Member Schubert?
Present.
Member Kelly? Present. Member Parker? Present. And I know Member Gergen is not here. Thank you.
Thank you. In addition, we are also joined this evening by Amherst Town Zoning Enforcement Officer Daniel Latowski. The first item on today's agenda is the approval of the March 19th, 2024 minutes. Is there a motion for approval? Motion by Member Schubert, second by Member Phillips. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? That has passed 4-0. Tonight we have 11 petitions on tonight's agenda. The first item is 91 Box Elder Lane for a special use permit. Will the applicant please come to the podium? Please write your name and address at the podium, as well as state your name and address as well for the official record.
Lauren Weeks, 91 Box Elder Lane.
And can you tell us about your petition?
I was hoping to start a small medical treatment spot out of my garage with a separate entrance, approximately 8 hours a week, one client at a time.
What will the hours of operation be?
Likely like Saturday 10 to 2 and maybe like a Tuesday afternoon, maybe 3 to 6, 3 to 7.
Do you plan on having any employees or assistants in the facility as well?
No.
Do you plan on erecting a sign on the house that people will be able to see where you're operating your business out of?
There's a side entrance door where we were going to do a small flat sign, if that wasn't a problem.
Does anyone on the board have any questions on this?
I just like to follow up on the signage. The signage you said on the side door, and how large would the sign be?
I was thinking like the size of a sheet of paper.
Okay.
And these clients would be coming on appointment. It'd be pretty clear when people were coming.
Scheduled appointment basis.
Is there anyone in the audience here to speak on this item? All right, we will close the hearing on this item. Would any member like to make a motion or have a comment or? There's a negative deck on?
Correct, yep.
There is? Okay. We have to first do a negative deck on this item. Do I have a motion for the negative declaration?
I'll move it.
Second.
A motion by Member Schubert, second by Member Phillips. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The negative deck has passed 4-0. Is there a motion for approval of the item? Motion by Member Phillips, second by Member Parker. Do we have any conditions that we would like on the business?
I wouldn't put any conditions other than general, it's 2 years, correct, for the special use permit?
I'm just concerned that there's no signage on the front of the house. I understand the signage would be on the door on the side, but that would be my only concern.
So, a condition for that the signage needs to be on the side of the house?
I would take that
All right.
amendment.
All right, can I get do we have the motion in the second? So, let's take a vote on the item. All in favor? Aye. Sounds like none are opposed, so that has passed 4-0 with the one condition of the signage on the side of the building. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we have the second item of today's agenda for 190 Sunrise Boulevard, an area of variance for a fence height. Will the applicant please come to the podium? Please write the name and address on the podium, as well as state such on the record.
My name is Jacob Schwartz, and I'm here about 190 Sunrise Boulevard.
Jeremy Colby, Klostinger, Gormley, here on behalf of Jacob and Cassidy Schwartz. Just write this
Do
down
you want to
quick.
present your petition?
Yes, and I'll be brief on this gorgeous evening. I'm sure everyone has somewhere else to be. Just briefly, Jacob and Cassidy, they purchased this property in approximately 21. The reason for moving was that they wanted a therapy dog for Cassidy, and so they found a property where they would be able to. And they were in an apartment in Kenmore, so they found a property where they would be able to have a yard and build their new home together. So almost immediately upon doing so, they contracted Lowe's, who made a big deal about that they pulled the permits and did everything they needed to do. Of course, they hide in the fine print that they don't do that, but they say they do that.
I'm sorry, you said they pulled a permit?
That they'll get permits for every other work. Lowe's installed the fence.
Yeah, you don't need a permit for a fence.
Okay, well, I don't know, but Lowe's.
I can comment on. So basically, at Lowe's they say we'll pull permits, and we loved that. And they came back and said, well, Amherst doesn't need a permit.
All right, okay.
We called them, and you're good. Sorry.
All right.
So it is, but that's part of. Just wanted to, part of the background of my client's sort of frame of mind, right? They did that. They also called the town themselves and asked, is there anything? They were provided the law, which they looked at and didn't quite understand, but said okay. Lowe's said okay. They didn't say no. They didn't give us a copy of the survey that Mark.
Who did they call at the town?
I called during COVID, and I spoke with it was many years, it was 3 or 4 years ago, but I called who I thought was the right person. And I said I want to do a fence, and they pointed me towards some rules. And I looked at the rules, and I thought that my house fit into them. The only thing that I found out later was that I should have asked for something that is like a survey with a fence on it. I didn't ask, I wasn't offered, but it was during COVID, so I imagine it was a misunderstanding.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just
No, fair enough. I mean, it's good question. And likewise, another, frankly, key aspect of our petition is nothing in the neighborhood would have suggested otherwise. We provided at least 8 examples of other homes in the area that have, corner lots that have almost the same exact setup, where there's a 6-foot fence, less than 10 feet from the property line. The fence here is approximately 2 feet from the property line. So I think my clients had clean hands. They did take. They weren't trying to pull one over in the town. They did do some due diligence and take some steps to comply. It's been several years. I understand that there was a complaint or anonymous complaint regarding the fence. Upon information and belief, we believe it was the son of a neighbor who is now deceased, and the property and family has since sold the property, so we don't believe that the objector still lives in the area, and that frankly, and this is the house that's to the south on Sunrise, and the neighbor now has informed my clients that she loves the fence. Adds to her property value, likes it, happy with the fence. So that's that. And again, and I'll let you address, I'll let Jacob address the sort of the motivation for the fence, and not even just the motivation for the fence, but the purpose that it serves, because it's not just an issue of, you could move it a little bit. The configuration of the yard, given the fact that the driveway cuts into the yard, so if you can see from the property here, you see a bit of a light in the fence towards the back right. That is where there's a gate that opens, that allows vehicles to ingress and egress right there. Thank you. From the driveway, and if you were to move it 10 feet back, one, you would substantially cut down the yard and the garden where Cassidy spends time and with the dog, and that has substantially improved her conditions. But moving cars into and out of the driveway would be extremely difficult with that much less space. And I don't have a picture of the inside of the yard, but it would make it much more difficult. So.
I have a question.
Yes.
When the house was purchased, was there another fence in place?
No.
'Cause I actually pulled some Google Earth images of this location, and it looked like there was a smaller, like a 3-foot fence at this location, and I just wondered if this fence followed the same footprint.
No, there was no fence in this house when we bought it.
Where is Cassidy's garden, since we don't have an overhead or a backyard view?
So basically, when we purchased the house and we asked for the fence, and Lowe's said great, the first thing that we did was we put in a meditation garden and a hammock. And to backtrack, we're here, I'm a mental health counselor. I have a clinic in Amherst. I love this town, and I want to say to you that I would apply for a variance had I known I needed one. So I'm sorry to waste all of your time with this. That being said, Cassie's father passed, I'll keep it short. Cassie's father passed away suddenly. She developed complex grief, and it went into PTSD. I'm a PTSD therapist. We got her into counseling, and we got her into medicine, and it only worked minimally. I work with veterans and first responders, and it became very clear to me that she needed a support animal. We were living in Kenmore. I said to her, I'm going to buy a house. This was during COVID. It was a very difficult period of time. I gathered money from my family and myself, and we purchased this home. In August, by October, we had that fence. By November, we had Lily the dog. We installed a meditation garden and a hammock in the first summer, and then we also did a raised vegetable garden that's big. In mental health, there's an equation. A cultivation of a competency plus a secure attachment equals an internal locus of control. What that means is when you learn something new with someone that you have a secure attachment with, you feel more whole inside. So we did meditation together. We did the vegetable garden together, and finally, this past summer, we did an English garden together. All of this is a lot of maintenance, and what I'm trying to tell you is this. My wife has improved. We got married in October, that's why I called her my wife. And we've already been pregnant with 1 miscarriage, and we're trying again. If we move this fence 10 feet, well, we can't move the fence 10 feet back because we can't move our cars in, which means if we don't get the variance, we need to remove half the fence. My wife would lose the vegetable garden, the meditation area, and the space she needs to be with Lily. So I know I'm being a little verbose, and I apologize, but it's so important to me that I hired an attorney because I was so shocked that we got this letter. So please, that's what I'm saying. Anyway, sorry for the please, but that's where I'm at.
But to go back to my question,
Yes,
and I
ma'am.
don't know if we can get the last one, where we see the side view where the gate is. Yeah, that one. Can you tell me, looking at this photograph, where those items are, so I have an understanding as to where they are behind this fence?
I can also show you on my phone if you'd like. I have an inside picture, but I can describe it. So basically, if you walk in, if this fence was open, immediately to your left is the meditation garden and the hammock, and immediately to your right, but about 8 feet back, is the 2 vegetable gardens that are on the side to the right. We would lose the vegetable, we would lose the meditation and the hammock. and we wouldn't have a fence for our dog. I mean, we would find a solution, but I honestly fear relapse with her because we're trying to have a kid, and it's really, anyway, I really fear relapse with her, and I don't want it to happen. But I know this is not a forum for mental health, but it's not just about aesthetic. And also, I will say one more thing. If we had a choice of a home, we might have chosen a non-corner lot, but this was the 15th house we put an offer on. We didn't have much of a choice. But again, I would have completely applied for this in advance if we knew we needed it. Oh, there's the vegetable garden. Yeah, that's it. Those are the two boxes on the left. On the right, you can kind of see the hammock there, and then against the house is the meditation garden. The English garden is not in yet. In this picture, the English garden is now in front of the vegetable garden. In between the shed, there's now an English garden that is high maintenance, which is what we want. We want to maintain it. Right? We want to have chores to do. It helps with PTSD. So there's the answer to your, thank you, whoever did that. And we moved in to be close to that elementary school, by the way. It's just walking distance from our home.
Is there any more questions from him?
I'm just going to take us back a minute. You said something about there was an anonymous complaint. Was it from the neighbor in the ranch house?
So if you look,
The ranch house being,
on Sunrise Boulevard,
is that Sunrise? It's to the,
they're both ranches.
it abuts your backyard.
No, it's the other one. It's on the south side.
Okay. Have you had any conversation with the owner of the ranch house?
Dan? Yeah. He's fine with it, yes.
Because that's my concern, because it looks like the fence is in his front yard.
We actually, yeah, and he's okay with that. We watch Bills games together. He's a nice guy. And when I approached him, I said, do you mind if I do this landscaping? He said, yes, but I'm going to change my landscaping.
Oh, wait a minute.
What we're displaying is some correspondence we received on some of the petitions. I think this one was from 96 Barberry, and I think in support of the request.
The fence which they are asking.
There may be a couple in opposition to the request. I can't recall.
Okay, we'll find it, I guess. Okay. Thank you.
What is that? Am I able to read that or no? Oh, they're in support of it.
Are there any more,
This is so nice. Thank you.
are there any more any more questions for the applicant? All right, is there anybody here in the audience here to speak on this petition?
Right there. So this should have been provided to all the zoning board members. I don't know if you received it this afternoon, but these are.
All right, we'll close the hearing.
Actually, if you're going to provide any briefs to this, can I just brief address it?
Pardon me?
Address it briefly? If you
No.
don't feel the need, I won't.
I mean, I think you've already discussed this issue.
Yeah, I mean, it's anonymous, so take it for what it's worth. But again, based on my client's prior interactions, he believes it was the neighbor that wasn't impacted by, frankly, the 10-foot issue. It was when he put up the fence that the guy whose mother owned the property said, hey, he mowed up into a certain point, and I think he believed he owned more than he did, and when he was upset, and then the survey revealed that he did in fact own that, his way to sort of throw a stone at a glass house was to bring up this issue.
So
While we're talking about these, who are Daniel and Kathleen Ottaviano, and where do they live relative to your house?
Next door to us.
Okay, so if I'm looking at your house is a corner lot, so is it like the one that we can see over to the right if I'm looking at the side by the gate, or if we're looking at the front of your house, is it to the left?
To the right.
Okay, so
Wait a minute, to the right?
that's the one where you were suggesting, it kind of looks like it's.
Now
to the
I'm
front.
confused. It's not the ranch house, or it is the ranch house?
Well, I can just, if you go to my house, I can just point it out. I'm so sorry.
I have it
They're
here.
both ranches. I apologize.
Oh, okay. Got it, sorry.
They're both ranches. There's 190. So
use your
Dan and
wheel.
Kathy.
The wheel?
I'm also happy to speak to the concern about the kids in the driveway, but anyway.
Okay.
Dan and Kathy's to our left, and the person who made the complaint we believe, used to own that house on the right because he told me he was going to make a complaint. And then his mother passed, and they sold the home. So the new neighbor doesn't mind it, and also we haven't gotten any subsequent complaints, obviously.
Members of the board, if I could just offer some history. The reason this is before you is because as the landowner has indicated, he received a violation notice from building inspections. There was a complaint during COVID initiated by an individual. It was anonymous. I received 2 communications, verbal communications on my telephone regarding this request. One gentleman, I believe his name was John, indicated that he made the initial complaint and he's still opposed to it. There was another gentleman, I believe his name might have been Dan, who also indicated he was in opposition to it. They did not want to have any animosity with their neighbors. They were advised to put their comments in writing to this board. Building did acknowledge a complaint during COVID. They never followed up on it. They were closing out complaints from 2 years ago, and that's why this is now before you much after the fact. As you all know, the town board made amendments to the provisions. At the time this was constructed, there was a 30-foot exterior side yard, not a 10-foot exterior side yard. So at that point in time, it would have been in violation far in excess of the 10 feet. So I just wanted to offer that as testimony.
So now the violation is 8 feet?
So right now, based on the information the petitioner's attorney gave us, it's approximately 1 foot away from the property line. That's based on the length of the fence that was provided by the petitioner's attorney, 27 feet 4 inches. If you look at the survey, that house is roughly 28 feet 4 inches from the property line. So it's approximately a foot away from the property line.
So does anyone on the board have, want to make any comments or make a motion? All right, closed it.
Someone, I didn't hear.
We closed the hearing already.
Yeah, I know. I was just
Yeah.
listening.
I struggle with these. I struggle with the, I empathize with the petitioner. I struggle with the do now, ask permission later. And I'm cognizant of the fact that there was reliance on the contractor. But I'm still struggling. And I know that there are neighbors that are opposed to this.
May I speak to that, or no?
Can I just make a comment?
No, okay, I'm done. Sorry.
My main concern, and I think you've answered it, is, well, it's not up there, but that ranch house, if you're looking at, your driveway driving in, the ranch house we're talking to the right, you indicated that they had no problem with this. To me, they are probably the ones that are impacted the most, because this fence is on their front lawn. Everyone else, they can live down the street or whatever, and they might not like it. I mean, I don't like it. But at the same time, the person that's living directly next to it, most affected, is not here and has not registered a complaint. So I'm going to make a motion to approve.
I will say, I think they did register a complaint.
You do?
Yes, that was one of the emails we received.
Was it?
The one I just referenced, the Ottavianos.
They're the ones in the right?
Yes. I didn't know that they.
Oh, I'm
Dan,
sorry.
Dan had communicated to me that that he was not going to be here today, but obviously human beings are human beings, so.
It's below this.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thank you for,
Yeah,
they're the ones next door where the fence is in their front yard.
And they're saying that the danger is to someone walking by, but we've ameliorated that. And one of the things we did was we purchased a new vehicle. It's the Honda CR-V, has a special backup camera that is wide angle, and you can absolutely see. And furthermore, I would be happy, there's a light pole, I'd be happy to put in a mirror. I'd be happy to put in a very large mirror.
I can't, you went up too fast.
Put in a mirror.
Yeah, that's the one, that's in that. Okay. The fence completely blocks our view of the neighborhood. And these are the ones you said were your friends or whatever?
Excuse me, sorry.
These are the ones in the ranch house next door that you said were your friends or whatever?
I suppose they're not, but I don't, sometimes, listen, I'm a therapist, sometimes people don't want to
Yeah.
be in conflict. And I frankly don't want to be in conflict with them
Yeah.
either.
I-
But I'm really concerned that if we have to remove this fence,
Yeah. I withdraw my motion.
Is there any, and I understand that there's some placement of gardens.
yeah.
Is there any willingness on your part to move it back a little bit?
I would move the fence back if we didn't have a driveway. Right now, because of the driveway, we can't move our cars if we move the fence back to 10 feet.
Yeah.
But here's what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
I'm looking at cars that are parked dead center. I'm thinking you could get at least 4 cars in the park behind the gate now. So if you moved it back, I'm not persuaded by that argument entirely.
Okay.
Because I'm seeing that if you even moved that back to where you see the first cross section of the concrete slab,
That's 8 feet.
yeah, I still see you can still park those 2 cars back there. So I'm not persuaded by that argument.
So I'll make you this recommendation. Why don't we adjourn this item for today? Why don't you go back, have some conversations with your neighbors, and come back to us next month?
What
And,
would you like me to bring in?
hold on, Dan, I have a question. There's a 2-foot setback when you're requiring 10-foot, so you're only talking an additional 8 feet to be in
So
compliance?
based on the information the petitioner's attorney provided us, it's actually a 1-foot setback now, not 2. So they will be seeking 9-foot relief.
So if he were 10 feet from the line, he wouldn't have to be here.
Correct.
The people who put in our driveway told us that we needed a metal gate. And the metal gate has to be put, so that's a metal gate with wood on it, and the metal gate has to be put into concrete. They cannot put that metal gate into concrete on the edge of concrete. So we have a 10-foot gate because our driveway is, I think our driveway is 12 or 13 feet wide. We can't make that gate wider, and so we have 2 vehicles, and when you come in and there's 1 vehicle, you have to get around it. And then the other vehicle there has to be ample space. My other SUV is huge and has to, I don't mean to argue at all, and I respect what you do, but that's a 10-foot gate and can't be changed because of the width of the concrete, and you can't get a car around it. We would have to remove the fence. There's no way to do it. And I'm also happy to bring proof of that if you want to see it.
So we can either take a vote on this item today, which might not come out in your favor, or you can go and have a conversation with your neighbors, see if you can come to a compromise.
Why don't we do that? And just for the record, I was pinch hitting for a colleague who was out of town, wasn't able to make it tonight.
Yeah.
But happy to have that conversation. Frankly, probably do some additional research into the other fences in the neighborhood that are there, and I'm curious as to why they're there. Maybe, they haven't had a neighbor complain, but again, I think that's substantial, and the value to these individuals is so substantial that, but if we're not able to resolve it in a, satisfactory manner, they will look for another house. I'm not saying it exaggerated. I mean, it's that important. I just want to emphasize that.
Understood.
So, okay.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Yeah, we need a second on the motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, it's adjourned. Thank you. The third item on today's agenda is 30 Farmington Road. Will the applicant please come up? Please write your name and address on the sheet at the podium and state that into the microphone when making your presentation.
Good evening. My name is Dave Sutton from Sutton Architecture, here today on behalf of Jim and Mary Beth Basil for a rear yard setback variance at 30 Farmington Road. A little background on the property. The Basils have lived in this property for over 30 years. And the reason we're here today is we're proposing a small addition off the back of the property, and it's in conjunction with a age-in-place attempt to get a first-floor master. So the small 12 by 14 addition off the back, which you see highlighted in red, is a result of an internal remodel, as well as a small addition to accommodate that first-floor master. We weren't able to do it all within the entire building, unfortunately, with some restricting existing architectural features. The bay window, which is on the south part of the property, the downward portion of the paper, was a substantial architectural feature which we did not want to change, alter, or modify. And as a result, the addition was kind of forced us to put that addition into the rear yard setback. Now, one thing, and the reason we're here, is this is a very unique property. It's a corner lot that has kind of a rolling road there. So the rear yard setback plays a tricky role in the layout of this property. So in reality, the property to the west, which is the neighbors, Paul and Beth Holmwood, they are actually, it's a side yard. So it's not a rear yard to them, it's a side yard. So it has a little different dynamic. And we did take all of the impact to them in consideration during the design. So unfortunately, we do have to infringe on this 30-foot setback, but we feel as though the impact is minimal in nature in terms of how it impacts them directly. And of course, the way it's set up on the property, it does not really directly affect any of the neighborhood or the character of the neighborhood. So we feel that this is probably the best attempt for us to achieve the age-in-place first floor master. And of course, as a result, we're forced to come here and request the variance. So I do know that this variance has criteria which need to be met in order to justify for this board to approve or deny this variance. Those 5 criteria is whether it creates an undesirable change in the neighborhood, and we feel strongly that the addition, its location, its exposure to the street, and its impact on the neighbor is it does not change or produce an undesirable change to the neighborhood in any way. The second item is whether we've sought out some other achievable means to get the desired end result. And as I explained during my presentation, it's been a challenge for us to actually provide any alternative. If you look at the left elevation portion of that sheet, you see that substantial bay window. The only other way to do it would have been to take that bay window out and put the addition there, have it more visible to the street. So we feel actually the location that we're doing this addition is better and less impactful, not only to the architecture of the building, but also to the visibility from the street. The third is whether this variance is substantial. The amount is a 30-foot setback, and we're asking for 22.8, but the character of this neighborhood and the lot almost suggests it's got a quality of a side yard setback rather than a rear yard setback. In that respect, it's well in compliance to a side yard setback and how it's impacting on the neighboring property. And that's why we feel it's not substantial. The fourth item is whether it has an adverse effect on the neighborhood. Once again, its location has minimal impact on the neighborhood. And last and final of which is whether it's self-created. One might argue that this is in fact self-created. Our argument is that we were given the existing footprint of the building. We're trying to achieve this first floor master, and we have explored all of our other options. And we do also know that these items are guidelines for you as a board, and the real goal of this board is to determine whether the benefit outweighs any detriments created. And we feel as if we are presenting an acceptable project today that the benefits far outweigh any detriment that might be associated with this request for variance. So that being said, I would like to request officially for the variance to be approved this evening.
Thank you. Is there any questions for the applicant?
Did you get input from the neighbor that it was the closest to?
Yes, the project was presented to Paul and Mary Beth Holmwood, and they said that they have no objection to the addition as proposed in its location.
just have one question. Not the entire addition is 22.8 off. It looks like it starts off almost completely out of the 30-foot setback, and it kind of tapers into it. So we're not talking about the whole thing being...
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, the actual impact into it is it's triangulated. The uniqueness of the lot is requiring the corner to project into it. So it's not a full impact. It is diminishing by the fact that it's at an obscure angle to the actual setback or the property line. Thank you.
All right, is anyone in the audience here to speak on this petition? Okay, we'll close the hearing. Would any member of the board like to make a motion?
Second.
Motion by member Phillips, second by member Schubert. All in favor? Aye. None opposed. That passes 4-0. Thank you. Okay, we're on the fourth item of tonight's agenda. That is 200 South Union Road for an area variance for a driveway area. Will the applicant please come to the podium? Please write your name and address on the sheet at the podium and state that into the microphone.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Elizabeth Tramposh, reside at 200 South Union Road, and we are requesting a variance to increase the permitted allowed impermeable area in our front yard. We had done a lot of construction on our house when we purchased it in 2021. The existing driveway was completely destroyed, and we're looking this spring to have it redone. We're proposing to create it, to make it 13 feet wide with a total area of approximately 1,664 square feet. And since we can pretty much only have a single car driveway, we would like to put in a parking pad in the front area to allow for parking for our second vehicle and any visitors that we have to the house. So based on the allowable calculations, we would need to exceed the allowable amount by approximately 190 square feet. That is why we are seeking this variance tonight.
Is there any questions for the applicant?
There's no, it's too tight where the garage is to put the parking pad in the back.
Yeah, it's too tight. You really cannot even, like when we back out of the garage, you really can't even kind of make that turn safely. So putting it in the front there really allows for the safest area to turn around.
All right, is there any members of the audience here to speak on this petition? Okay, we'll close tonight's public hearing on this item. Is there any motions or comments by members of the board for this item?
I'll move to approve.
Motion by member Schubert, second by member Parker. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passed 4-0.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Now we're on to the fifth item of tonight's agenda. That is 95 Ninth Drive. Will the applicant please come to the podium? Please write your name and address on the sheet there and state it into the microphone for the record.
All right, my name is Adam Cole. I reside at 248 North Long Street. My family and I would like to build a home on 95 Wyeth. This is a lot that I purchased at the Erie County Tax Auction. It was in foreclosure. We are essentially, and you can just refresh yourself with this slide from the application, but if we could move on to the second slide, that is sort of the meat of it. Essentially what we're asking for is that the rear yard be considered the side yard. As you can see, it is more consistent with the layout of the neighborhood. Side yard meets side yard, and so our proposal is that what is currently considered the rear yard be considered the side yard. We believe that will help connect the north part of the lot with the rest of the lot, as the alternative would be to have the primary structure on the south portion of the lot, and then an accessory dwelling unit on the northern half of the lot, which would sort of split the lot in half. Coming from the north to the south, you would be faced with the side of a garage as opposed to an open porch. We believe it meets the balancing test and 5 criteria set forth by Town Law Section 267B3B. With regards to criteria 1, the proposed site plan adheres to front and side yard established norms for the neighborhood, including parallel side yards. With regards to criteria 2, no other methods have been derived which would benefit the neighborhood better and in fact may detract from the established neighborhood norms. With regards to criteria 3, the proposed variances are not substantial. They are respecting the established front and side yard norms as well as area coverage and heights. With regards to criteria 4, the proposed variance will have a positive impact on the neighborhood by enabling a principal structure that is consistent with the neighborhood. And finally, with regards to criteria 5, the difficulty has long existed since the subdivision was approved many years ago and is in no way self-created by the applicant. I am seeking your input.
Okay, would anyone like to ask a question for the applicant?
You indicated that you purchased the parcel at auction. What did you pay?
$1,000.
And in terms of like the assessed or the tax value, what's that?
I believe it's $2,500.
I have one question.
Yeah.
The survey that you provided, it's October 3rd, 2023. It says reserved as shown on map cover 2398. What does that mean? Reserved.
Reserved is covered on map. Can I get back to you on that? I apologize. I wish I knew.
So, Member Schubert, yeah, James, can you go to the very last image that we were able, very last image? Okay, so can you just reduce it a bit? So this was the original map cover approved for the subdivision, I believe circa 1975, 1977. The area highlighted was an area that was not part of the subdivision, or in essence called a reserved area. It was originally part of lands owned by the developer, which was also part of lands to the east of this. At the time the subdivision was approved, it was approved with that reservation in there. It was not a buildable lot at the time the subdivision was approved. It was simply area not to be developed or reserved by the original developer. That's the term reserved. Sometimes people refer to it as an exception lot or an exception area.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions for the applicant? All right, any members of the audience here to speak on this? Everyone, please remember to write your name and address on the sheet at the podium, as well as state that into the microphone.
My name is Ralph Livrigo. I'm an attorney at 101 Slade Avenue in West Seneca. I represent the owners of property at 118 Heim Road. So the survey of my client's property shows that their side lot line is 5.96 feet from this rear line. So if this variance were granted, that would put the windows of the bedrooms less than 11 feet apart. My client purchased the property in 2015. Her and her husband lived there with their 2 teenage daughters. Their lot's 105 by 350. This lot is only 3/10 of an acre. It was purchased by Mr. Cole, according to the information I have, on November 16th for the sum of $1,000. It's assessed in the town for the sum of $1,500. That clearly tells me and shows me that the reserved lot that this was never meant to be a buildable lot. This lot, at its widest point, is only 65 feet wide. 65 feet wide. You require a 30-foot setback and a 30-foot rear lot line. So this was never intended to be a buildable lot. When my clients purchased the property in 2015, they were told by the building inspector that it wasn't a buildable lot it was a reserved lot and wouldn't be built upon. So clearly, and by the way, this is an R3, which is low density. That's the zoning for low density, single family houses. And I certainly don't believe that this lot can sustain the property. So I have looked through clearly your 5 criteria that you will look through. The undesirable change in the neighborhood. I have a petition, and we've added to the petition, so we now have, and I'll hand this up, we now have 13 signatures. Every house surrounding this property is against this. The neighbor to the right of this lot, it's his backyard. The fence is right there. The neighbor's backyard fence is right there. So this house would sit beyond in the backyard area of his neighbor on this street to the right. The benefits sought certainly could be achieved by another method. I mean, he only paid $1,000 for this lot. Obviously, there are plenty of buildable lots in this area. I don't know if he said he was building it for himself or simply building it to sell. He doesn't live at this, this property, but there certainly can be achieved by other means to buy a buildable lot in the town of Amherst. Substantial. Clearly, this is a substantial variance. It's a 30-foot requirement, and they're requesting down to 5 feet. That is more than an 83% reduction. And that certainly makes this thing substantial. The adverse effect, it's a treed lot. All those trees would have to come down. So that has its effect, and it clearly is self-created. So my clients and a number of the neighbors believe that this is not a buildable lot. And I understand people wanting to, build a house and make some money to sell it, but this was never intended to be a buildable lot. It wouldn't have sold for $1,000 if anybody thought this was in fact a buildable lot. It wouldn't be assessed by your town at $1,500 if the town thought this was a buildable lot. I'll hand up this petition.
Before you step away, did you ever discover during your inquiries how this ended up at auction?
Pardon me?
Do we know how this parcel ended up at auction?
We don't know.
I just got a letter from here for a meeting here, like 2 weeks later. So
What we believe was the property was on the market for so long a period of time that this is what the owner of the property realized, what have I got here? And what he should have done, in my opinion, he should have contacted the surrounding neighbors and asked them if they wanted to buy the property for $1,000. That would have been the smarter move, but it got put up for an auction to bid. Mr. Cole bought the property. I certainly don't, but it's not a buildable lot. Clearly it's not. And I'll hand up this petition.
The reason it was up for auction was taxes not paid for my understanding, 42 years.
Yeah. All right.
So, you want to say anything more?
Yes, I have to.
Okay, go ahead.
I haven't been sleeping since Tuesday when I received this letter. I did not know what happened, like why is this even an issue? I did send an email today. I don't know if you received it. I took some photos, I think, yes, where I put it with what I wrote to the board. When I bought it, when we started looking for the house and we saw this house, and the house itself does not look anything pretty. You can, but the backyard was what everything was beautiful about this place because it has a large green backyard with the trees all the way. And
yeah, so
see, this is the house. We did some painting and stuff in the front, right? But this is when you come to the front, this is what you see. And then you go to the back. The house, this is it. It was trees everywhere. We had to cut some down because of the ash borer. The trees died a lot. But that side is still good and alive. There are a few trees that came down, but I didn't want to come into it. We will cut the trees that will fall onto our property and just move them. the house that is, when we bought a house, the realtor, who has been a realtor for like long time, he's an older gentleman as well, he told us the same thing. And the owner, John Burkhart, and his son, who was in the house, he told us that this is never going to be built. This is like triangular shape. You can't fit a house that fits properly. And he told me it's a reserve lot. So I don't know, you know, the reserve lot is something that is, I don't know what gentleman, he said it's not to be built. This is like a little piece of green area that it's hard to find really, and in this, or any area really out of, you know, Williamsville. And I wouldn't be looking into probably into this property if there wasn't this, that little forest that is in there. So the variance that is being sought is would basically, see, this is the garden that was there when we bought house. It's also on the map of the property, like in a town. The property line is maybe like, I don't know, 5-6 feet there, and then they plan to build a house 5 feet from that line, and the windows on the first floor of the house, living room, kitchen, bathroom, den, and porch, which is 3 feet from the property line, is looking into my backyard where I sit. The second floor, master bedroom, one bedroom and another bedroom, is also looking to the backyard. My master bedroom looks here. This is photo from my master bedroom. My kid's bedroom is below me, so it looks that same way. My kitchen is there. Even my office that I work every day now is looking. So this is the only privacy that I have. The front of the property, I have a shared driveway, so I look at like 1, 2, 3, 4 houses kind of in front of me. So I wouldn't be purchasing this this house if there was no such a nice kind of a green oasis, which is, everybody kind of benefited. If you go down, I think there are photos from Wyeth. See, this is the map. So I'm 118 with the blue house area. This is where that house is going to be built. This is me trying to scramble it. But you see that everything, whatever I have in the back, is basically becoming their backyard. And I can't put and it's a 27 feet tall house, and I can't put a fence to not to prevent them to see it, but to get some privacy for me to look. And in talking to all my neighbors, they're all supportive. I have a list. I went from Saturday when I was able to not working and talk to them. Look, this is the Wyeth Road. That's the lot. It's beautiful green. It gives them privacy. There's like nobody on the other side, but when it's, you know, it gives me also privacy, and I don't see traffic. There's no, it absorbs the noise, the gases from the cars. Yep. And it's just beautiful there. I used to work on a Audubon behind Tim Horton, kind of I used to walk home, and I would literally go down across Millersport, and across Stahl and Wyatt, and I'm home, 8 minutes. So it's almost like a country setting in a town.
All right, thank you. Let's give the other members of the audience an opportunity to comment on this.
Hi, I'm owner also of the house. I just want to give you an example. This is a window, my bedroom, kids' bedroom, kitchen, down there, upstairs. There is a truck right there. So there is that house. Every time I have to close the window when I want to change the clothes, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Terry Sterinsky at 122 Heim. I'm 2 doors down from them. I've lived here 26 years, and the main attraction for me when I first bought the house were the trees. It was gorgeous, and we're losing more and more trees. Emerald ash, I had to cut a bunch of trees down, they did, And that's like the only tree line, looking in that direction, that's the only tree line there is anymore. And that's gonna be cut. And my mom moved in with me 5 years ago, and she says all the time, Terry, I love living here so much, it's like living in a forest. And we're losing that. It's gonna ruin the whole appeal of the whole area there. It's the main attraction of our homes there, I think. The big lots, the beautiful trees, the birds chirping, everything. Not to mention the poor deer are being squished out, they're in my yard, and they're losing their homes too. And I just think it's gonna be a huge, huge negative impact on, you call the condition and the character of our neighborhood major.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on this one? Please remember to say your name and address into the microphone.
My name is Donna Sukan. I live at 71 Sovereign Court. My property doesn't abut this land, but it will impact my line of sight that we've enjoyed for 36 years. I'm also speaking on behalf of my neighbor next door. Her property at 63 does abut this proposed development. Jean isn't feeling well tonight, but she's here, Jean Nicholson. We were both, Jean and her husband, and my husband and I were both told when we built that this was a reserve lot. It's not a buildable lot. I'm a real estate attorney. I know what a buildable lot looks like, and this isn't it. It's too small. I believe the reason people live in Amherst versus the city of Buffalo or even Kenton is because of the space. We love our spacious yards. We like the light and the air, the ability to enjoy our backyards. We don't want to be on top of each other. This is akin to New York City when you're in your apartment and you're looking across to the bedroom on the opposite side, looking into somebody else's window, and that's not what this neighborhood is about. The character is very much impacted. Kings Mill is kind of known for this beautiful stretch of trees as you go around the curve on Wyeth. It kind of defines the neighborhood, so it's very much incorrect to say it would not impact the character of the neighborhood. I hate to see the light, the air, and especially for the lady who spoke first, Mr. Larigo spoke on her behalf. It's really going to be a ridiculous situation for those two houses. So I'd be opposed to any development there, and I would be opposed to the granting of the variance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rick Sukan. I also live at 71 Sovereign Court, and I would like to address the board just by suggesting that the requested variance imposes a highly, highly undesirable and unaccepted change to the character of our neighborhood. As the proposed structure, a mere 5 feet from the lot line, is an eyesore viewed from the houses on the circle of Sovereign Court and our adjacent neighbors on Heim Road. Further, I would like to emphasize a point made previous that our developer, upon purchase of our lot at 71 Sovereign Court from Engasser Builders, we were advised that the space on the bend on Wyeth Drive was reserved and would remain green space and therefore undeveloped. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Andrew Deely. I live at 111 Wyeth Drive, which is just on the north edge of the property. I've been there for about 40 years. We had our house built there, and one of the reasons for selecting that lot was because of the reserved green space that was next to it, so we wouldn't have a neighbor right there. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rich Pettit. I live at 44 Wyeth, and I was interested in knowing what size house was being planned there. Thank you. We've recently moved to that to Wyeth 5 years ago, and we appreciate the greenery and the space we have. And I do believe that a house there would not be good for the neighborhood and would cause a a hazard for pedestrians, and because that house is on the curve. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? All right, we'll give the applicant a chance to respond to the comments.
Sure. So I should just speak to the comments?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'd like to be as respectful as possible to everyone's wishes. I'd like to take down as few trees as is possible. I'd like to keep that a forested lot if possible. My goal is to make it a safe, functional lot that would return to the tax roll. The goal right now is to avoid dividing the lot in two with an accessory structure. My understanding is that would just sort of split the lot, create sort of a no man's land in the northern part of the lot, and nobody would be taking care of that lot. It would, it would be sort of a no man's land, like I said. Again, I really would like to just seek input and digest everyone's wishes, and I'd like to be as respectful as possible.
Thank you. Does anyone on the board have a question for the applicant before we close the hearing?
I do. I'm having trouble getting beyond, I mean, I understand realtors and whatnot make promises, and I'm not really impressed with that at all. But I am having trouble with the one issue here, character of the neighborhood. It says, describe whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood. And your answer was the proposed design and use is consistent with the front and side yard zoning regulations as well as height and area regulations. You don't say anything about the rear, and I don't know how you can get beyond number one, which, in my opinion, this is an undesirable change.
We would like the rear yard to be considered the side yard as it meets up with other side yards, as is the norm with all of the neighborhood as a whole.
Is there any more questions for the applicant? All right, we'll close the hearing. I'll just start my comments. I agree with what Member Schubert was alluding to, in that the character of the neighborhood would be negatively impacted by this. In addition, I do find the desired change to be substantial in its characteristic. It would pose a physical or environmental, a negative factor for the physical or environmental condition of the neighborhood, and I do find this to be a self-created issue, so I'm not inclined to support this myself.
Can I ask, is it possible to take some feedback that you're providing?
The public hearing is closed.
Oh, okay.
So is there a motion to, on this item?
To deny.
Second.
A motion to deny by Member Phillips, seconded by Member Schubert. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The petition has been denied. Thank you. Okay, we're now on to the sixth item of tonight's agenda. That is 170 Campbell Boulevard. Will the petitioner please come to the podium? Please state your name and address into the microphone and present your petition.
Name is Michael Anton Chertino for 170 Campbell Boulevard. I'm seeking to remove an existing detached two-car garage. It's a very small two-car garage, replaced with a larger three-car garage that will permit some storage and organization. The house this will be attached to is an older 1870s property. Don't really have much storage space interior to the property, as is common in houses of that vintage, so seeking some additional storage space there. In addition to the area variance with regard to size of the structure against the square footage of the principal residence, there's also the setback, which is less than the required 50 feet, but it's not getting any closer to the road than what the current structure of the house is.
Does any member of the board have a question for the applicant?
So essentially, the three-car garage is gonna be in the same footprint, but with it'll attach to the primary residence.
In the survey, there was the footprint of the existing garage. You can see the smaller black lines, and then the red line is the new structure. It's also not any closer to the road on the setback part.
And the square footage was all of what, 14 feet different?
I'm not entirely clear on that. If you look at my information, the numbers on the requirement was a little different, but I guess they came up with a slightly different number that they put in the summary here. I think my numbers were 75% equaled 1312.5 square feet. They came up with 1592. I'm not sure which is correct.
Are there any more questions for the applicant? Is any member of the audience here to speak on this item? All right, we'll close the hearing on this item. Would any member make a comment or make a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by member Phillips, second by member Schubert. All in favor? Aye. That passed 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're now on the seventh item of tonight's agenda. That is 20 Pine Court for an area variance. Will the applicant please come to the podium? Please write your name and address on the sheet at the podium and state that into the microphone.
Good evening. I'm Peter Grau here on the matter of 20 Pine Court. I'm asking for some relief on the back offset of 35-foot requirement on the back property line. As you can see, my property is kind of diamond shaped, and that causes some problems with the rear offset for me. What I'm proposing to do is add a single bay onto the existing garage, and then head back towards the back property line. That would be, of course, tastefully done, blend in with the existing house and gable structure. I did have the property resurveyed. That was going on at the time when I had made the application. Of course, the property lines haven't changed. Those are the same.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing. There's so much noise in the back.
I'm sorry. I had the property resurveyed, and that was being done at the time I made the application. The property lines haven't changed. I just wanted to illustrate, and this older survey doesn't show that the area there labeled as Town of Amherst right-of-way, that is the former Peanut Line Railroad, and that railroad, along with the 17-foot easement on my side as well as on the other side, is a total of 100 feet wide. So my property here, if I were to get permission to build this way, at that farthest corner, entering into the 35-foot offset by 20 feet, I would still be 115 feet away from the closest neighbor on the opposite side of the tracks. I've spoken to all of my neighbors, everyone on Pine Court, the people on the other side of the tracks, as well as the people that border me there on the west. No one had a problem with it. Everyone was very supportive. And in fact, several of them offered to sign documents or come in here and help plead my case. One neighbor, my next door neighbor, was questioning whether there was enough space to do it. But you can see from these dimensions here that the edge of the existing garage to the property line is 24 feet. So there's plenty of space to add an additional bay in that direction. The reasons why I want to do it, I purchased a new vehicle, a truck, which doesn't fit in my existing garage. So I'd like to keep the vehicles all indoor for safety reasons, and also for appearance. I've heard of several cases of break-ins of vehicles parked in the driveway, even in the town of Amherst, so I want to avoid that. Questions?
Does any member of the board have a question for the applicant? Is any member of the audience here to speak on this item? Okay, I'll close the hearing. Would any member of the board like to make a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by member Schubert, second by member Phillips. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passed 4-0. Thank you very much. We're on the 8th item of today's agenda. That is 1540 and 1542 Maple Road. The applicant come to the podium. Please write your name and address on the sheet at the podium and speak that into the microphone before making your presentation.
Great. Good evening. My name is Chris Winkler. I'm a civil engineer from LaBelle Associates. I'm here on behalf of Kaleida Health. This is for the Women's Clinic project, which is planned on the Kaleida Health property, 1542 Maple Road. These are the photos of the area. The project is currently in minor site plan review. We received comments through zoning enforcement. We're requesting relief from the high impact screening and buffer just along the east property line for the project that you can see in this photo here. The comment was received from the zoning enforcement as part of the minor site plan review. Basically, the adjacent property is currently the Elderwood Village at Bassett Park, which is zoned multifamily, and we're required to screen the parking area between that east property and the parking lot. There's an existing parking lot there now. We're going to be expanding the parking to the north. If you go back to the photo, I can describe the issues that you see. So this is MacArthur Drive. On the east side, there's the overhead power lines. There's two easements that run through there for those overhead lines. It's electric line and telephone. When they do maintenance on the line, if we plant the trees there and the vegetation for the buffer, they're gonna have to take out the trees before maintenance on those lines. The other thing, the most significant issue here is those mature trees. You can see the dense vegetation, the trees that exist, that's on the adjacent parcel. If we plant trees in that 8.5-foot space there, we'll end up killing the trees on the adjacent property. So those are the two biggest reasons why we wouldn't be able to install the high impact buffer. We met with Jeff Schakowsky in the town of Amherst. If you turn to page 13, well, actually, if this page here is good too. Right there where it's screened along the property line, you can see is MacArthur Drive. That's the east property line in yellow. MacArthur Drive is just above that. The parking lot expansion you can see is above that, and when meeting with Jeff Schakowsky, the town landscape architect, we added additional shrubs and trees in these parking lot islands here. He decided that that was a good solution for this issue.
Is that it?
One other, yep, and then I can go through the criteria. We don't believe that this would be a detriment to the character of the neighborhood. There's already existing vegetation there. And we're adding additional vegetation and landscaping for the project and on that east, so we are screening the parking area. We don't think that there is any other alternatives that we could have done because of the location of the overhead power lines and those tree roots. We don't believe it's substantial in nature. There's already existing vegetation on that property to the east. Again, similar reasons. We don't believe there's an adverse impact on physical and environmental conditions because of the existing mature trees and vegetation that are east of the parcel. And also, we don't believe that it's self-created because the existing trees and mature tree roots are on the adjacent property. I'd be happy to take any questions now.
Any member of the board have a question for the applicant?
Of course, I have just one. On Exhibit A.
Yeah.
It's labeled Photo 1, looking north on MacArthur Drive. Do you mean looking north from MacArthur Drive? And then on the bottom one, is it looking south toward MacArthur Drive? Because that's not MacArthur Drive.
That's labeled MacArthur Drive.
That roadway is?
Yeah, it's labeled MacArthur Drive.
Really?
Yeah.
It's not
It's
a
a-
town,
it's
not
a
town
park.
road, is it?
It's not a town road, but I think it is viewed as an extension of MacArthur Drive.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Learned something tonight. Really?
All right, is any member of the audience here to speak on this item? All right, I'll close the hearing. Would any member of the board like to make a motion? Motion by member Parker, second by member Phillips. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Pass 4-0. Thank you very much. We're now on number 9. It's 1630 Maple Road. Please make sure your name and address is written on the sheet at the podium and state that into the microphone before making your presentation.
My name is Randy DiNatale, and I'm here representing Iron Properties and Dr. Pollock. For this application, Dr. Pollock is looking just to add a family member into his practice and to expand the signage that is allowed for this parcel. For this parcel, right now, is existing, it just says Stephen B. Pollock, MD. He's looking to add Scott in there, and he is an optical doctor, so therefore the patients need to be able to read, every sign on the property. And this is only an extent of, I can't find the words right now, I apologize. An extension of what's allowed of 213 to 240. It is just the addition, literally addition of the additional doctor for the optical division. So we're just seeking a variance to get approval for the additional doctor's name on there. It is going to be a new sign. It won't be that pin letters anymore. It's going to be ACM panels. But as you can see, it's not going to change the visual that much. Not going to change the difference to the plaza, to the parking lot, or to the building itself.
What is you're putting a sign, you're just putting in a new sign?
Correct.
Are you changing the area of the existing sign?
Correct. It is going to be just, I think it's 35 square feet for the entire parcel. So there's 2 signs that we're putting in on the property that are already existing. We're just putting over what's existing to add that additional doctor to the patients and so forth.
Does any member of the board have a question for the applicant? Nope. Is anyone in the audience here to speak on this item? All right, we'll close the hearing on this item. Would anyone like to make a motion on this?
I'll move it. I move to approve.
A motion by member Schubert, second by member Parker. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passed 4-0. Thank you. We're now on the 10th item of tonight's agenda. That is 208 and 214 Joe McCarthy Drive.
Yes, good evening, Sean Hopkins on behalf of the applicant, Mel Investors LLC. Also with me is Paul Bliss. The next 2 items, this item and the following one, are actually related projects. So I'll walk you through this one first, but you'll see there's some overlap. So this particular site consists of 2 parcels located at 208 and 214 Norrisport Highway. Or not Norrisport Highway, Joe McCarthy Drive, which is located here. Just to acclimate everyone, this is Niagara Falls Boulevard, Roger Chafee Drive, and Edward Wright Drive. So we have a former Yankees manager and 2 astronaut street names. This parcel consists of approximately 0.28 acres. It is currently zoned MFR5, and obviously along Niagara Falls Boulevard, we have commercial uses, including Gary Pools. And then as we extend to the east or to the right, we have additional multifamily properties on properties zoned MFR5, including Denrose, which is the next parallel street. It is important to note from this aerial one very important point. The street currently ends here. So literally there is no street. While this is a public right-of-way, there is no street for that entire section. We'll talk about that in a second. Next slide. It's a zoning map just showing, of course, Niagara Falls Boulevard, GB, and then extending to the east for quite some distance, parcels that are zoned MFR5. Next slide. So we're talking about two projects. This is the first one, which is here, the two parcels at 208, 214. What we're proposing on this parcel is a 2-story, 4-unit townhome building with attached garages. Mr. Bliss has built similar units throughout Amherst and throughout West New York. And probably the best example of this one would be, what's the name of the street called? Hunt Club Lane, which is off of Transit, and those were very successful. There will be extensive landscaping. There will be no need for parking lot lighting for this. The lighting would be on the buildings. And this project, while it is minor, relatively minor, would still require site plan approval from the planning board. The reason that's important is that ensures all compliance with all technical standards. Next slide. Color version of the concept plan, again, focusing here on the 2-story, 4-unit townhome building. It is important to note, while this parcel fronts on Joe McCarthy, it also obviously has frontage on Roger Chafee, and this would be actually oriented towards Roger Chafee. Next slide. So what variances do we need in connection with this infill project? Number one, we need a density variance. The number of units on this parcel would be 2 units, and we're proposing 4. When I get to the next presentation, I'm actually going to mention it here. Really, a lot of our justification with both of these projects is obviously we have to extend that roadway. Well, long ago the town stopped undertaking that process, so that will be on the burden of my applicant or my client, Paul Bliss. The cost of that 470-foot extension, including sewer, water, gas, street trees, lighting, possible recreational trail, et cetera, will be more than $500,000. And Paul says $500,000 is a very lower conservative estimate. So in order to justify that expense and finally complete that long overdue extension of that public roadway, which is beneficial not only for these parcels, but also parcels in the immediate vicinity and the parcels that front on Niagara Falls Boulevard, that's why we need the density. The second variance we need are various setback variances from the front and 2 sides, here, here, and here, and then also from the rear. And it's important to note that pursuant to the zoning code, those are based on either 1.66 times height or 2 times height, and we're envisioning a townhome building with an approximate height of 25 feet. Next slide. Variance number 3 is for the parking area as measured from 1 townhome unit to Joe McCarthy. Again, this is a corner lot. So right here, under strict compliance with the zoning code, we'd need 20 feet, and we're at 17.44. So we're very close. And then finally, pursuant to section 724B of the code, we would actually need a fence, but only here, just along this driveway. We think it'd look better if we screen that with landscaping. And rest assured, Jeff Sikowski, the town's landscape architect, will review a landscape plan to be prepared by a landscape architect. Next slide. So obviously, this is governed by the balancing test and the 5 criteria set forth in New York State Town Law, Section 267B3B, which requires you to balance the benefits that will be realized by the applicant if the requested relief is granted, and weigh those against any resulting detriments to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community. We think here, quite clearly, the granting the variances will actually result in favorable changes to the community, favorable changes to that character of the neighborhood, get these parcels that have been sitting there vacant, despite the fact they're in a very developed area, back on the tax roll, and again, will allow us to incur that expenditure of more than $500,000 to complete the road, lighting, landscaping, et cetera, et cetera. And then the 5 criteria, whether the granting of the requested relief will result in undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties. We think the answer is no. This is a multifamily project in a multifamily neighborhood. If you look at Mr. Bliss's successful projects throughout the town, he always emphasizes high-quality architecture, high-quality lighting, extensive landscaping, and immaculate maintenance and management. So we're comfortable that that'll be the same case here. Criteria number 2, whether the benefits that we're seeking can be achieved by some other method other than the requested relief. And the answer is no. We need the 4 units rather than 2 units that would be expressly permitted to justify the expenditure. Area variance criteria number 3 is whether or not the grant of the requested relief is substantial, which I think is the next slide. And the key there is whether there will be any harm. Again, we don't think there'll be harm. In fact, we think there'll be benefits. Criteria number 4, whether the grant of the requested relief will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions. We did submit a short environmental assessment form. It's my understanding Mr. Ulatowski has prepared a draft negative declaration for your consideration. And as I mentioned previously, this project will require site plan approval. And then the final criteria is whether or not the alleged difficulty is self-created. We know what the zoning is. We know how these parcels are configured. So nonetheless, even if you find it's a result of a self-created difficulty, we think the overall balancing test and the other 4 criteria provide ample and strong justification for the grant of the requested relief. As such, we would ask that you do that. I do want to summarize the seeker. Unlisted action. There are no wetlands. We have a wetland investigation. No archaeological, cultural, or historical resources, per letter issued by SHPO on March 19th of this year. And we will be making drainage improvements in connection with this project and the other project. So with all that being said, we would ask that you issue a negative declaration and approve the requested area variances. And of course, either myself or Mr. Bliss would welcome the opportunity to address any questions that any of you may have. Thank you.
One question I have is, what are the number of parking spots that you have for this?
So each unit has an attached garage. Can you go back, James, to the site plan? Each unit has an attached garage. Is it a 1-car or 2-car, Paul? 1-car garage, and then an individual driveway in front. So we have 2 spaces per unit.
Okay.
I noticed there's a parcel that's not included being surrounded.
Thank you. So let me talk about that. So this parcel here and these 2 parcels, which will come into play with respect to the next matter, are both owned by an individual named Mike Silla. Paul bought these parcels in 2019, I believe it was, or 20. Since then, and including about a month ago, we've sent about 5 to 10 letters to that individual asking for 2 things. Number 1, would they be interested in selling those parcels? And number 2, if not, could we collaborate? We've never received a response. Most recently, Paul actually went to the gentleman's house, hoping to see him, and dropped off a letter. So we haven't heard from him. If at some point in the process we do, as Paul always does, we'll make an effort to address his concerns. But, we can't wait any longer. We've literally been waiting 5 years to see if we could come to a solution on that.
Yeah,
And thank you for bringing that up.
You would be able to at least a couple of the variances eliminate.
Yeah, well, we would, if we could just even acquire this parcel, which again has no frontage today, we would make this all one project, of course. So if that still comes into play, it would eliminate some of the variances. It would be fairly easy to incorporate. These 2 vacant parcels, which are owned by the same gentleman, they at least have frontage on 2 streets, so they are developable. And if you look at the town's records, he actually does own a lot of the older multifamily buildings back in that area. And one of my friends rented a unit from him in college in 1991, so he's been there a long time.
Any more questions from members of the board? Is there anyone in the audience here to speak on this petition? Okay, we'll close the hearing. Would any member of the board like to make a motion? Oh, sorry, negative deck.
Second.
Motion by member Phillips, second by member Schubert on the negative deck. All in favor? Aye. That passed 4-0. Would anyone like to make a motion on the item?
Move to approve.
Motion by member Schubert, second by member Phillips. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passed 4-0.
Thank you.
And we're on the final item of today's agenda. That is 226 and 280 Jill McCarthy Drive.
So now we're moving down the street. Sean Hopkins again on behalf of the applicant, Mel Investors. Also with me is Paul Bliss. So whereas we were looking at these 2 parcels before, we're now at these 10 contiguous parcels located 226 through 280 Joe McCarthy. Also zoned MFR5. They're about 1.24 acres in size, and obviously still have commercial uses on Niagara Falls Boulevard and multifamily uses to the east. Next slide. Just to show you the zoning map, similar to what you saw before. Next slide. So what are we proposing here? On these 10 contiguous parcels, which would all be merged, we're showing a 3-story multifamily building with 30 residential units for lease, which would be located here. 50 parking spaces, which would be located here. Again, both these projects provide the necessary revenue to fund the extension of Joe McCarthy at a cost of more than $500,000. We will have extensive landscaping, including landscaping shown here. We're also showing a 6-foot solid fence along the entire back, and then also along the northern edge of the project site. We have a stormwater management area to handle drainage. The lighting that will be installed will be dark sky compliant. And this project, as was the case with 208, 216, also will require site plan approval from the planning board. Next slide. The color version of that concept plan. It's important to note, this is just to illustrate the street extension. There will be additional landscaping, stormwater, et cetera, in the back. Next slide. So what relief are we asking in connection with this project? Number one, density. The zoning code per section 203-311-2B would allow 13 units. We're proposing 30. Area variance number 2 is the front yard building setback, 70 feet required versus 13 feet. That 70 feet is based on 2 times building height. So we can do a multifamily building with a height of up to 35 feet, the same height that's permitted in the town's residential districts, and that's what we're doing. We're not extending beyond that height. Area variance number 3, side yard setback south, 52.5 feet required, and we're at 29 feet. That's measured from those 2 parcels owned by Mr. Silla here. Next slide. Area variance number 4, rear yard setback. Zoning code would require 70 feet. Again, 2 times height, we're at 52 feet. It is important to note that we previously had a plan that had parking here. We previously had a plan where this building was closer to the center of the parcel. Based on discussions with the planning department staff, we made a decision to push the building up closer to Joe McCarthy. We think that'll provide an adequate buffer in the back and avoid there being any parking behind the building. Area variance number 5, proposed vehicle parking spaces. Zoning code requires 60 spaces, 2 per unit. We're at 50. We're comfortable that that'll be enough parking for this based on what we expect the demographics and the combination of the units. And then finally, the proposed vehicle parking setback along the right-of-way is less than required. We're showing 15 feet 6 inches. There'll be a green space buffer along the entire frontage, whereas strict compliance with the zoning code would require 20 feet. Next slide. Same balancing test and same criteria, and it really comes down to, again, the need to justify that expenditure to complete that long overdue extension of Joe McCarthy Drive. I think that's something the town's been wanting to be done for a long time. Clearly will not result in any undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties. There are no feasible alternatives that would allow us to receive the relief we're seeking without the requested relief. The area variances are not substantial, in our opinion, again, because we think this is good for that area. Inject millions of dollars of private investment and really put a new project in an area where we don't see a lot of new development. Criteria number 4, whether or not it will result in adverse environmental impacts or impacts on physical conditions. No, we did submit a completed part 1 of the full environmental assessment form. And again, it's my understanding Mr. Ulatowski has prepared a draft seeker determination. And then finally, whether or not the alleged difficulty is self-created. We acknowledge awareness of the zoning code. We acknowledge that this requires relief. However, we think the balancing test and the 5 criteria provides ample justification. And then the final slide deals with seeker. It's the exact same studies that were done before. No wetlands on the site, no archaeological, cultural, historic resources. We will comply with all technical standards, and as such, we think issuance of a negative declaration is appropriate. So with all that being said, we would ask that you consider issuing a negative declaration and granting the requested relief in furtherance of this project. Thank you. If there's any questions, we would welcome the opportunity to address them.
Any member of the board have a question for the applicant?
Maybe it's more of a comment. So you're building this on a parcel to the, let me see, to the west, there's nothing. It's a road that doesn't exist.
Right.
To the south and the north, we abuts a person you can't find. So it looks like the only ones that might affect are the people to the east.
On Dead Rose.
As far as I can see.
Right.
And I think it's a great benefit to have that road finished and connecting.
Right. And again, if Mr. Silla appears at the planning board somewhere else, we'll work with him. We would love to pick up this parcel. And if he's interested in selling these as well, you know, we'll mirror that townhome project here.
Any other questions? Any member of the audience here to speak on this item? Okay, we'll close the hearing. Would anyone like to make a motion, or a negative deck? Motion by Member Phillips, do I hear a second? Second by Member Schubert, all in favor? Aye, any opposed? Negative deck passes 4-0. Does anyone want to make a motion on the petition?
Second.
Motion by Member Phillips, second by Member Schubert, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes 4-0.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
All right, could we get a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting? Motion by Member Phillips, second by Member Parker, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Pass 4-0. Thank you very much.